check that. So it should be fine. All right, we got 1 minute. Okay.
I'm not checking.
It's like I can see it on the page. If you're watching, let me know if you can hear the audio in the comments. Everything appears to be working. Let's see if that goes. All right. What's up, furniture nerds? My name is Kim. I'm with Walcout. I'm coming to you live from inside my design studio here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where we are about to start reupholstering this wingback chair. This is a channel back chair. It was given to us by the Furniture Bank of Metro Detroit to flip for their furniture flip bash, which is the culmination of a furniture flipping competition that they throw annually. This year is their second annual furniture flipping competition. And I don't know exactly how many people are participating this year, but dozens of people will submit projects that they flipped from home. They did their own creative reimagining too, and then they will go up for auction, and then there's a competition to see who did the best. And there's Hillary Farr from HGTV's Love It or List It, and now she's got a new show called Tough Love will be there judging, and then there's a handful of other judges too. And then all night long they auction off these pieces, and the proceeds go to families in need and families exiting homelessness. So this Tutorial Tuesday, we're going to work on showing you, one, how to gather all the tools and materials you're going to need, so you get a pen and pencil and make a list. And two, we're going to show you how to measure for materials, and then all the tools and everything you're going to need to complete it. So sit tight, get something out to write with, because you're going to need this. You'll be able to follow me along every Tuesday leading up to the event, which is September 10th. And then you'll be able to watch me upholster it live at the bash. I'm hoping to let me go live on social media, but you can attend the bash itself, watch me upholster this live, and then you can bid on it and own it if you want. I don't think you have to live in Michigan to do that. I don't know how they get it to you, but I think anybody can bid on it. So this is something that you think you might want, go ahead and attend on the 10th. So this chair right here, I've chosen these two fabrics to reupholster, but I haven't decided whether or not we're going to keep the channel backs or we're going to make it a flat back. And honestly, it might come down to how much time we have. So what we are going to do is we're definitely going to put foam on the back so that we're ready for a solid back if we need to. If we have time to do a channel back, then we're just going to carve the channels in the foam, and we're going to hand tuck the channels to it on location. I'm going to get this camera to stop so it doesn't follow me around. So let me go over everything that you're going to need to do this. Starting with staple removal, which is what we're actually going to get to today. I'm going to show you how to remove staples, so you show me tips and tricks, and then I'm not going to finish removing all the staples today. My husband's going to do it for me later on. So, are we ready? Let's go. First thing, let's go over staple removers. So, let me get this to stop too so it doesn't move it. So I have a collection of staple removers that I use. All of them I kind of use for different purposes. But my main go-to is this sharp staple remover right here. This has super pointy, sharp tips, and it's able to get under deeply embedded staples. It's also ambidextrous, so you can use it if you're right-handed or left-handed, and it's engineered to leverage off the frame to reduce the impact on your body, on your hands. So this is my favorite go-to. This is the CS Osborne, either a 120 or a 124. I'm about to show you the other one. These two I carry on my website. This is another tool, CS Osborne staple remover. This is either the 120 or 124. I don't really know. But this has sharp little points, just like this one, but it also has a little gap. I don't know if you can see it, a little slot that once you get up under the staple, you can grab that staple with it and you can just twist it and it takes it off. Again, this is ambidextrous and it's leveraged, or it's designed to take the impact off of your body. This tool is another one we're going to have to use specifically for this chair where it has decorative wood edge. Right here, this does the least amount of damage. This is also the cheapest of all these staple removers that I'm showing you. It's called a double rack, and I've only ever been able to find it on Amazon. But this has two little nubbies that get up underneath the staple, and then the way it's carved out and designed, you just twist it out and it removes the staple from it. This is good for carved edges because it doesn't dig out the wood, but it does go dull quickly, so I only use it for carved edges. This isn't my go-to, even though it works better than all of the other ones, because it goes dull too fast and you end up having to replace them. And then this staple remover I got to show everybody what staple remover not to get to remove staples. And this is something you find at Home Depot. A lot of the hardware stores have staple removers like this. This has got a blunt end, it's rounded, and it doesn't do a real good job of getting up underneath deeply embedded staples, but it does an incredible job of removing decorative nail heads and upholstery that was attached with upholstery tacks. So this is a good one to have on hand, even though I dug it for not working well on staples. And then finally, you're going to need a pair of pliers to be able to grab the staples that break off and pull them out, or maybe the ones that don't come out all the way. There are several different types of pliers. I like these needle nose pliers. They're bigger. My hands are smaller, and bigger ones work well for me, and they help me to get it out easy. I have carpal tunnel on my hands, so I try to use tools that take the impact out of my hands so that it doesn't hurt as much, because this job can actually take a lot out on your hands. What else do we got? So specifically for the removal of materials, you're also going to want a razor blade and some sharp razor blades to go with it. And then 2 pairs of scissors, one for cutting fabrics and one for cutting stuff that's not fabric, like your fabric when you come take it off of here, any ropes or anything like that. Material that you're not using to cut the fabric that's going on top of your furniture. 2 are good. And you're also going to want to have a tack hammer. This is going to hammer in any of the nails or staples or whatever that you can't get out with the pliers. We'll knock them back so the sharpness doesn't snag your fabric or materials later on the road. And then you're going to need something to attach all of the materials with it. Most people use a stapler. This is your standard home stapler. You can use one of these. But this actually takes a lot out on your body. It's very difficult to push this down, especially for every single staple. Something automatic is going to be better for you. It's going to be faster, and it's going to do less damage to your frame. We use pneumatic staplers. You can use electric too, but electric, you can't adjust the pressure on them. So you might have a difficult time using it on some woods or in some places. These also, the electric and these don't have a nose on them. So in some instances, you're going to need like a tip of a nose so that you can get into the crevices and stuff to staple. This doesn't have that, so this isn't going to be used on some projects like this where you need to get deep into the crevice of where the staple goes. So we use pneumatic staplers like this. And this is one you can get on my website right now. And this one is going to be on the new website when you go get it, because I actually have a partnership with this company here that you can save 10% on your purchase. This one is probably one you see most often in upholsterers' hands. Most professional upholsterers prefer this one. This is a $400 stapler. You do not need to buy a $300 or $400 stapler to do this. In fact, this stapler is exactly the same, and it is less than $100. Plus, with my discount code, you can save 10% off of that. This works exactly like this. It has the same exact parts, same exact buttons. It's just a different color. holds the same exact staples. These are both 22 gauge staplers with 3/8 inch crown. That's what you're looking for. That is a tiny staple that is meant for upholstery. It does less damage to your frame, even though they are a pain in the ass to take out. They're real thin and they tend to work hard easily. If you do invest in a pneumatic stapler, I suggest you invest in a long nose first because you're going to need a long nose in some cases. And if you don't have one, you're not going to be able to move forward. And you can use a long nose for anything. So this is my favorite go-to. After staple removal, you're going to be putting everything back together. So I'm just going to go over the basics of the materials that I need to put it back together. Go ahead and switch. Perfect. So that's what I have here behind me. One thing I did put it back here. So when we start putting everything back together, the first thing that we're going to put on here is barrier fabric. That can be scrap fabric. It can be any medium to heavyweight fabric. We have plastic synthetic burlap that I actually don't have on hand, but you don't have to purchase materials to do this. This is a great area to reuse materials so that you're not wasting a bunch of material. When we can't reuse it, we replace it with synthetic burlap. The other stuff that is going to go on here is going to be your foam and your batting. And I've got a few different types of foam and a few different types of batting I'm going to use for this. So we're going to do a 3-inch foam on the seat, 2-inch foam on the back, and a 1-inch foam on the arms. And I use medium firmness foam for all of these. This is all stuff I carry on my website. So this is my 1-inch foam. This is just going to go on the arms. This doesn't require a lot of padding because it's just for your arms, but it is going to get 1-inch foam and it's going to get some cotton batting and regular batting on the top. The 2-inch foam, when you order this from my website, it comes in full sheets, 82-inch sheets. But the new website will have smaller versions, even like wingback chair kits that you can purchase that are sort of specified to the project. So this is a 2-inch foam. It comes a sheet 30 inches wide, but it's 82 inches long when you get it. So if you order one of these, be prepared. It is going to be huge and you're going to need a big space to put it. Now, the barrier materials are all going to be applied with staples, but the foam is going to be applied with glue. And we use this red, this is called like quick glue. This is a contact adhesive. We keep it in a paint sprayer and we use a pneumatic sprayer to apply it. It is red so you can see it. It is very messy. We keep it in this box so that it can't tip over because there's a ventilation hole at the top. And if you lay it down, it's going to spill out the ventilation and it looks like fake blood and it's very, very hard to clean up. So keep your eye on that. So that stuff will all be attached with contact adhesive. And then on top of the foam, we're going to put batting. I like to put a layer of cotton batting first. This helps make it look real juicy. And as we go through this project, I'm going to go over like every single step before the class so you know exactly what we gathered before. This is kind of like what you know you're going to need to be able to do this. So cotton batting isn't absolutely necessary, but I like to use it because it makes it extra juicy and you can help use it to sort of shape things. So if I wanted like a nice crown, I can build up a nice crown for that. I also have this wooden spatula that I got from the idea from Jonathan Bennett of Unsprung Upholstery and the Workroom channel. He taught me how to use these to stick everything between tight spaces where you have to shove all your materials. This is a good thing to have on hand. I think we got this at IKEA. It's real smooth and it doesn't have like pokey slivers on it, so it goes in real smooth. And then regular batting. Polyester batting. This is a 3/4 inch polyester batting called Light Bond. I order it by the roll. Some places sell it by the pound. You can order it by the roll. For me, it comes in a roll this big and this tall, and it's very hard to carry around, and you do need a big place to store it. I also have half rolls, so the same width, but they're half the height. So that's all the stuff that we're going to use to build up this chair, and then we're going to have these fabrics. So these are fabrics that I have that I'm going to put on here, and I haven't decided if we're going to do the channels or not. We'll see how much time we have at the event, but we'll prepare for channels because I think people will learn a lot more. But there's potential that this is going to be a smooth back chair, which is worth noting that the chair doesn't always have to look exactly the way it looks when you go to put it back together. There are some options. We could do deep button tucking, we could do crazy stuff. This is going to have to be kind of a quick flip because I only have 2 hours to get the fabric on it. So we're going to take all these tutorial Tuesdays to get us to foam and batting, and then we'll take it to the live on September 10th, and we're just going to be applying fabric and closing it up. So this is the fabric choice. This tiger print fabric is from Covington Fabrics, and it shows it because I like his little grin. I think this tiger is super cute. And then we're going to pair it with this vintage cotton velvet, which will be on the front. And then it's going to get probably black welt trim on it, which is another thing that you're going to need. I sell this by the roll on my website, but you can also buy rope at Home Depot that's 3/8 inch wide, and like the stiffest, like whitest, paperest rope that you look like, because welt does have to be stiff to help everything that you sew to it or attach it to keep it in shape. So you don't want a floppy rope, you want something that's nice and stiff, and you can either order it from my website, order it somewhere online, or just go to Home Depot and buy 3/8 inch rope that's kind of stiff. You can buy that at like 100-foot lengths for like less than $10. And I think that is it for materials. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to just show you how to remove, well, actually, before we remove staples, let's measure it for materials. So we know exactly how much to get of each one. So you're going to need one of these measuring tapes. I also have, for when we start cutting materials, when you start measuring and cutting the materials, you're going to need they're less than $20 at Home Depot. So let me get this fabric out. So there's 3 types of materials that you're going to need to measure for on this chair. You're going to need to measure for the fabric, you're going to need to measure for the foam, and you're going to need to measure for the batting. And those have slightly different variations of measurements. So the first thing that we're going to measure for is fabric, because you're going to need to know how many yards of fabric that you're going to need to upholster this project. We can keep this on this view. So I'm going to show you like the best way to measure for fabric when you're a beginner, because you're going to want a little bit of extra in case you make mistakes. So when I'm teaching students how to measure for fabric, first I tell them to assume that you cannot get more than 1 panel of fabric out of the width of the fabric. Most bolts of fabric come between like 52, 56 inch wide bolts. And most of the time they come the selvage edges on the left to right. So you have to work from top to bottom when you put your fabric patterns on there. So when we measure for fabric, especially new students, we just measure the lengths of all the panels, and then we add those lengths up, divide by 36, and that's going to tell us how many yards we need approximately. I always round up to the nearest yard, and sometimes I'll add additional yards just to make sure I have enough. Now, if you have a pattern fabric, you're also going to want to measure the pattern repeat, because everywhere the pattern breaks, like on this chair, from the back to the seat, from the seat to this welt, and then to here. Everywhere the pattern breaks, you're going to want to add the length of your pattern repeat to make sure that you can pattern match that as you go. And we'll get into that as we start putting this pattern on the back of the chair. So here I'm going to measure the whole entire chair, front to back. And when you write this down, I want you to label the parts. So this is going to be seat front back, or you can name that whatever you like to make it less confusing. This is going to be the seat, and then this is outside arm, inside arm, and back, and that's all gonna like have its own measurement. So you don't need to do left arm, right arm, because they're both the same size. So you can just do inside arm, outside arm, seat, seat front back, seat back, and then add up all those lengths. So on this particular chair, I'm going to reach down as far as I can into the frame, because this actually has to attach to the frame. And I've got like 3 or 4 inches to go before it reaches the frame. So I'm going to add that to my measurement too. And then I'm going to bring this up and around and touch down where it's going to staple to the frame. For you, if you've never done this before, just assume where the seam of the 2 fabrics in the back meet. That's where they're going to get stapled. I've got 30 inches. 30 inches, so I'm going to add those 4 inches to get down inside the frame. And then you want to add an additional 4 inches to be able to have enough material to pull with both hands. When this material is applied to the chair, after it's stapled down, they cut off all the excess that they use to pull it and keep it taut on the chair. So you're going to want to add that back so you have enough material to work with. So this was 34 inches with the length of the inside. We're going to add 4 more inches to it to make it longer. So we're at 38 inches. And I have my beautiful assistant keeping track of this. So now we're going to measure the seat. And I'm not really going to break down the seat to the welt to this little fabric. I'm just going to measure the whole thing because we can get out of the whole thing. And that's giving me 34 inches. And then we want to add those 4 inches to get back to the seat, which brings us to 38. And then the additional 4 inches to give us enough to pull. That gives us 42. I did that one in my head. So we've got 38, 42. Now I'm going to measure the arm. Now the arm fabric on this chair comes down here, goes down here, goes down into the frame. So I have to account for the distance in the frame, which is going to be that 4 inches. Come out here, measure it all the way back. So I've got 19 inches here, plus the 4 inches for the frame, 23, plus 4 to be able to pull it. So we're at 27 inches. For the inside arm, so that's times 2. And then the outside arm is going to start stapling right up here, come down to the bottom. I've got 13 inches, plus I want to add 4 inches so that I have enough to pull with both hands, and that is also times 2. The last bit that I have to measure is going to be the back, which in this chair, the back does wrap around partway to the side, so this wing is in its own panel like it normally would be. So we're just going to measure from the top where it would attach down to the bottom, underneath where it would attach there. At its tallest point, we've got 28 inches, plus we want to add 4 inches so we have enough to pull with our hands. What does that give us?
Inside, what was the inside arm?
The inside arm was 27 total with that. So we're going to add up all of those lengths, and then we're going to divide by 36.
5 by 30.
Yeah.
5.
So 5.5. So that's telling us we need 5.5 yards of fabric to cover this whole thing. But in this case, we're doing the front and then we're doing the back, so we can break that up. And it's roughly about the same amount of fabric on this, but I think the front is going to need more. So it's going to be 3 yards for the 3 yards for the front, 2.5 yards for the back. You can double check that math on your own. Don't do that in your head. Do the math for the back fabric and do the math for the front fabric, and then divide it up that way. I've got 6 yards of this fabric, just in case, because it actually has quite a large pattern. I'm going to show you how to measure for that. So if you have fabric where you don't know the pattern repeat, but you're in the store and you have one of these, so you can measure for it. So what we're looking for is where one part of the pattern starts, and we're going to measure down to the other part of the pattern. This is a great example of how pattern fabric can really tack on material costs. So here I'm going to measure from the bottom of this part of the pattern here to the bottom of that part of the pattern there, and we have 25 inches. So this pattern repeat is every 25 inches. So everywhere you break your pattern, you need to add an additional 25 inches, which is almost a whole yard. I once did a chair that only required 4 yards of fabric, but the pattern repeat was 48 inches. So I ended up having to use 12 yards to do it. And a lot of that fabric, it goes to waste because it just is part of the areas that you have to cut off so that you can match your patterns. So that's how you measure for fabric. When you're measuring for foam, I always do the length and then I add 2 inches because you're going to want a little bit extra length that you can trim off to make it fit. And then when you measure for batting, you're batting measurements are going to be the same exact measurements as your fabric measurements because it goes on just like fabric. But when you do your cotton batting, you're just going to measure for the surfaces it's going to go on. I'm not wrapping everything in cotton batting. I'm just going to put it on top of the seat, on top of the arm, on top of the arm, and then I'm going to put it everywhere where these channels are. If I do channels, I'm going to have to put 2 layers of them individually on each of the channels. So I have this cotton fabric here. This is probably not enough cotton fabric for this project, but we'll be able to bring more to the event should we need it. So now I'm going to get this chair flipped over so we can start the staple removal process. I'm going to show you where to start, when you can know to stop, anything that might need to be replaced, anything that can stay. I'm just going to flop this camera around so that you can see it from above. Okay, first. All right. Zoom out on that. Do you have any comments? I don't see it. Can you help me flip this over? Is it still picking up? Yeah. I don't think it's picking it up off of this one. This one? Perfect. Okay. Let's get close. Cross, could you help me untangle this cord? So that I can get close. Perfect. I might need you for Zoom. So I'm going to start with my favorite tool, this Sia's Osborne. Again, this has real sharp pointy tips, make it easier to get up under deeply embedded staples. You can see all of our staple lines here underneath. So this is layered. This has your outer fabric. We have some foam, no batting on this one. This is a barrier fabric that is placed between the foam and the springs. Not well. The reason we place barrier fabric between the foam and the springs is to prevent it from cutting through the foam as it ages. Here you can see they didn't cover all the springs, and because of that, it's already begun cutting through the foam on this side. So potentially this foam would be able to be reusable, but we would want to replace the barrier fabric underneath here for full coverage, and then that would protect this from falling through the foam. You can see this is why the seat is falling apart, dilapidated on the top, because it's all just kind of squeezing out of there. We can see that all of our staples are right around this edge. So once we remove these staples, then we're going to be able to remove the side panels, and that's going to expose where everything from the front is stapled through. So we're going to start removing that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on some staples here. I'll move the camera after you zoom. Just go ahead and zoom. There we go. Right here. These ones are kind of hard to see on camera because they're so little. But this is how we're going to go after them. I think most people come after staples from the side like this. And that is actually pretty dangerous because you can slip. And if your hand is in the way or your friend is in the way, you're definitely going to stab something. So my approach is to come at it from on top, where I'm pushing the sharp edge into the wood right next to the staple. And then I give it a light twist, get up underneath there, and then that'll pop out. Now, sometimes that staple won't come out all the way. And in that case, you're going to want to come back in with a pair of pliers and just twist it out. Notice this like light twisting motion. This is not putting a ton of impact on my hands. It's less hard work, and it's going to allow me to do this faster. And if you go slow, you can make sure you don't pop those out. But these staples are popping out pretty easily because the wood is soft. And soft wood will make it easy to get these out. And then when you get to your next project with hardwood, you will have had false hope about how easy it is to remove staples because hardwood is way harder. Almost every staple breaks. So you can remove these each individually like this. We'll show you that was how you use that tool. Let's go over this other C.S. Osborne too. This is the same deal. Poke the point in the wood, get up under the staple. This time the staple can grab this. This time the staple remover can grab that staple and twist it out. Let me get a little closer here. So I'm gonna get up under there, pry that out, grab it with that little groove, and then just twist it right out. So there's that one. Next one is gonna be this one that I told you wouldn't be good for staple removal, but on this shirt is actually getting under there okay. And it's less risky. It's not gonna like stab. And then there's the double rock staple remover, which will get right up under there with that little nub. And then twist that right out. Oh, these are coming out great. Which gives me hope for this next step. So if you happen to be lucky enough to have fabric that is strong enough to be pulled off and pull the staples with it, this is something you can do to make this process a little faster. First, you're going to want a sharp blade. So I'm replacing this blade with a nice sharp blade. Well, I was gonna. Can you get this open? Yeah. Let's try the other end of it. Let's see. I don't know if both ends have been used. We'll just try it. We use these blades in dispensers, but this dispenser is all jammed up. I can't get the blades out of it today, but this is a great to get with extra sharp blades. So if you were to make this row of staples its own row and completely remove it from the rest of the fabric, I'm just going to cut alongside it here. Then sometimes, but not always, you can grab that fabric with your pliers and twist it like a curling iron. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it'll pull every single staple up with it. And in this instance, we're getting lucky because we got multiple rows of staples pulled up with this. But it doesn't always work that way. And you want to be careful not to leverage off the frame so you're not damaging your wood. I almost just scratched all the finish on these legs off by rolling into it. Be cautious as you work that you're not actually causing damage to your frame while you work. It took me years to be thoughtful about that. So that you're not touching anything up or fixing any damaged wood as you go. So that's what we do. We're just gonna finish cutting around these. Can you zoom out just a little bit? One more. There we go. All right. So I'm going to go back through here. I'm going to cut this out. Now, people ask, do you have to remove every single staple? The short answer is yes. There's a finite amount of staples that your project can hold before it starts to deteriorate. But if that staple is not holding anything down and it's flat or deeply embedded into the wood and removing it would cause more damage, just keep it there. It's your first project. You don't need to be a stickler about that. But if you're doing this for clients, you want to make sure that you're removing any debris that is going to cause more damage if you're adding more sharp pokey things to your frame. So here, I'm just going around. The first step is to get everything off the bottom. The next panel to come off is going to be the outside back because that is covering all the staples from the outside sides. So once we get the base off, we'll be able to go do the outside back, and then you guys will be able to kind of see where everything is attached from the front of the frame. If you're reupholstering this completely with all new foam and batting, then you're going to strip it right down to the wood. But if your springs are in good shape like this, you can leave your springs on there. Sometimes if your sinuous springs are broken, because they use specialty tools, if you're newer, you're going to have a hard time fixing these. But you don't need to have similar springs on here. You can use jute webbing in replacement of it, and that's going to give you a good place to start in terms of getting some suspension in your seat. So here I'm just going back through these staples that didn't come up, and I'm just going to twist those out. Now some of them are breaking. I'm just going to leave them. I'm not going to keep trying to dig at them. I'm just going to get under the ones that I can get. And I'm just lifting them right now because this part of the wood is harder than this part of the wood. And it's not coming out as easy. So it looks like there's multiple types of wood used to build this chair, which is pretty normal in mass production. This is a replica of an older chair. I don't think this is an actual antique, but it doesn't have any of the information on it. It just definitely looks way newer. Like the foam isn't even that old. And then these are the staples that aren't pulling out all the way. So if you're not pulling out, you can just knock them back with a hammer. So I got that up. I'm going to finish cutting this guy. Your blades will go dull pretty fast, especially if you end up cutting staples. And then I'm just going to finish twisting this up. This time, it's not really pulling out a lot of staples because the wood is harder. So the staples are staying behind, but it is tearing away the fabric. So I can see the staples a little bit better. This process will magnetize every tool you use. Your pliers become magnetized, your staple remover becomes magnetized. I don't know the science behind it, but I'm sure Hank Green could chat GPT it for you. When I get up under these troublesome staples, be extra careful when you're close to the wood. In fact, this is a good spot for your double rack staple remover so you don't accidentally scratch it. This one's real close to the leg, so I'm getting in there with this less sharp version so that it doesn't scratch the wood. And I'm going to go back through here, just twist these staples out. We're really lucky because there's only actually 2 rows of staples under here. One that was for the foam and one that's for the fabric. So, one for the welt and one for the fabric. I'm not going to remove all the staples today. We're going to go through and I'm going to cut the fabric off for the rest after I remove the back for you, just so you can see what the frame looks like. I have carpal tunnel, so it's very difficult for me to do a whole project. And so what happens is my husband will get it up to the point that I can work on it. And then we'll start back again next Tuesday. I'm putting on first barrier fabric, then foam, then padding, hopefully. We might do some finishing too, because I think I want to paint these legs black so that they match the fabric a little bit better. So we have this row too. It's going to have to get removed on the bottom. For now, I'm just going to cut it off so that I can show you how the back is removed. I'm going to turn this around. Right. And I want to get this a little closer. From the side edge. So first, I'm going to cut here. Then we can use the twist method to remove the fabric from the edge of the frame. So that's the tag. That'll just have to get pulled off. Now the sides here are attached with a metal tack strip here and here on this side. They are stapled in up around everywhere else, but on the very back, all the way up from here to here is just metal tack strip. So I'm just going to get my staple remover under there. You can also use a pry bar. Pry bars work really well. And just push this up. This is not a removable tool. Like you will not, or not removable, sorry, reusable bracket to use because these strips get all bent up out of shape when you use them. Some of them will even knocked over. And so you won't be able to reuse it, put this back on. So you either want to buy more, which I carry on my website, or you're going to want to hand stitch it on. Any kind of pry bar will get this up here. I'm using the really terrible staple remover because it's a good tool for other stuff. And this is just a bit of a closer look. Scissors or a knife or something. Just the big ones. So this is a good job for your crappy scissors. And then this is that metal tack strip. It's a handful of different types of tack strip. We're going to be using a lot of them on this chair. This is a straight metal tack strip, but we're also going to be using ply grip, and we're probably also going to use cardboard tack strip, and we'll uncover those as we go. To save time, for the purposes of this, I'm going to just cut off all of the fabric instead of removing staples the whole time so that I can show you guys some of the important parts that you're going to want to see. So this coming up has exposed where the staples are for the side panels. And those have to come up before I can get everything else up because it's covering all of the work in this area. So I'm just going to cut another length of that. Be careful not to cut my wood. Leave a mark. Always be gentle. You don't have to rip and tear everything. You might create more work for yourself if you do. And here, if you remove this outer well, you're going to see, let's get down there, where it is revealing the staple underneath. So you'll have to remove those too. But today we're just going to cut it away. I highly recommend cutting everything away before you start removing staples because you create those strips that you need to pull it, but you also make that look like you did a lot of work before you actually do it. And you can feel better about it. This is actually pulling out pretty easy. Whenever you can do that, do that. There's that cardboard tack strip we were talking about. This is just a real thick cardboard tack strip that's used to create a sharp edge when you fold your fabric over. So this is ready to go. This stuff is in much softer wood because I'm able to pull it out. I don't have very good arm strength. So this might actually be more stripped than I think. And then you're going to want to remove any sharp pointy bits. So what we've just revealed under here is what's called chipboard. Chipboard is a barrier material where you can put your foam and batting and everything on, but it's also a shaping, sculpting material. If it's a round back, sometimes it'll round it. This is here to help hide the boniness of the frame and to be a barrier for all of the batting and stuff that was on here. So through here, you can see this is where all of the material is attached that is on the front of the chair. So we have to remove these side panels to get to the material that is attached to the front of the chair. And then here, you can see where it's attached under the arm. We have more welt here. That's part of the trim. This can just get pulled off. And then we're left with that row of staples too. So from there, I'm going to do that thing where we're just not cutting because that blade is already dull. We're just going to cut up that strip and even around the arms. And we'll remove those staples later. For now, we're just cutting it up. If you're trying to preserve foam and batting, you're going to want to be careful. Scissors might be a better option for this because they're not going to cut through your foam and batting. We are going to put all new material on this. So whoever gets it is going to get a brand new chair. I'm going to do the same thing here. Cutting all the way around. You can see more chipboard here used to create the curves around the wing. Back fabric is gone. Look how fast it's going. And so behind all this chipboard, you're going to see where everything from the front comes through the pull-through spots on the side. So we're going to get that removed. Luckily for us, this is all on softwood. And now you can see this fabric that's pulling through the frame. Okay. This row. This row. Be careful pulling like this because it does hurt your body. Like, don't hurt yourself trying to. Blade. Here is my pliers. See, they're over here. Nope. No, oh, yes, they're on the table. Thank you. I'm just going to grab this fabric and twist it off. I'm just trying to access the areas right now that are underneath the chair before I flip it over. All right. I think that now have everything cut away from the bottom. Let's pretend we removed all the staples. Let's flip this around. Okay. So I'll turn this to the side. See what we've done. This is just left over from the back fabric, and I was able to actually pull that out pretty easily, so let's do that now. These bits. This is all staples coming out like blackheads. All right, more staples. This was a little harder. This one was harder. They are not pulling out staples. This is just pulling out the fabric. Here, you got the welt. You can grab it like a curling iron too. You don't have to pull that hard, although this is 30 staples. Ton of staples in this area. Now, welt trim, this is a double welt trim. You don't have to use a double welt though. You can use a tight single welt if you keep your work clean enough. That's meant to cover up the staples left behind. Oof. Just pile staples. then here, oh, still cardboard top. I really thought we were going to see ply grip there. I'm surprised. We're going to use ply grip there. So when we use this, you're going to learn how to use it too. All right, let's do the back. So on the back here, what you're looking at, chipboard, we've been over it. This is your barrier fabric from the inside. This was put on here to prevent this material from falling through the frame. And even this is put on pretty poorly. It's all loose up here, so eventually this stuff could find its way through. It's okay down here. But we're going to do a much better job putting that together. So here is all your fabric that is attached to the front coming through the frame. So this has to come off too. I'm going to see if I can cut it. Red knife is what I had last. I'm going to cut it. Otherwise, you'd be removing the staples everywhere where it is attached to the frame here. I'm going to cut it here too. This is the barrier fabric. This fabric, sometimes you'll see this like, and it's a different fabric that's on the front. In this case, this is the utility fabric that is put on here to conserve fabric, so you don't have to pay as much money for it. In some cases, you might see scrap fabric, and a lot of times people confuse that for like the original fabric or fabric that went on there before. But really, it's just, if it's sewn to the piece that's on the front, it's just sewn on there to be a pull to conserve fabric. Maybe they run out. Maybe they took it into account. Everything that needs to go through the frame, they didn't want spend money on expensive fabric to do that. So this fabric right here is the utility fabric to the front fabric that is attached to the frame. So we want to get that undone first. Harder for me to just cut out because I can't even see where the staples are right now. Let me put this. I don't know how to get this better. Is this one open? Right more.
Here.
Let me cut this free. We might not be able to get to the actual staples today. Here, there, okay, all the way through. I'm not worried about damaging any of the fabric as I take it off because I don't plan to use any of it to make patterns with. You can save your material if you like, but I'd like you to learn how to make patterns on your own so you're not relying on the pattern from the furniture. Because like I said before, all of this material had more fabric on it when it was attached. You're going to be reupholstering it, so it's likely going to be bigger and juicier. And the fabric that exists as it is right now is not big enough to pull and staple and get it in place. It's too short. So use it as a reference, but you're going to be adding additional inches. And if we're not doing the channel back, this chair is just rectangles wrapped in staples. There's very little sewing. The only sewing is the actual welt on here, and that trim can be put on there without welt. You can do this whole entire chair without sewing like anything. So I cut through here on the side. We're going to cut the other side too. And then we're going to see how we fared on the front of the chair. See if we released it all so we can pull it off. They use a lot of utility material here. This is almost like paper, like you can rip it with your hands. And that's the cost savings of mass production. Even on a nice hardwood frame, there's still some corners being cut. I want to cut around here where it is stapled to the back of the chair. So that this will release and go forward. And this has, these channels are sewn in, but it's got just foam and batting. I've actually only ever seen cotton batting stuffed in channels. That's cool. Well, cotton batting and Forster. All right, so I cut it from the front. Cut it from all the pull-through spots except for this. And so you can see this chipboard, your coal fabric, and everything's stapled to the bottom of the frame on the inside. Now it's stapled to the bottom of the frame on the inside here. Keep this outside panel flat for your flat panel fabric. So I'm going to cut these layers after staple. So that's released. Release in the back. We're going to release the other side. And then release this pull. Okay. I went right through that one. Money! I found a quarter. Fun fact, the Great Depression, people were yanking their money out of the banks. They were putting them in their furniture instead. So always slice open your seats. Okay, so the next bit that has to come off before all of this stuff can come out is this piece up here, which this fabric is just wrapped down. So this is just a rectangular fabric that's flipped down after it's stapled next to that welt. All your staples for that are cardboard tack strip that go right up underneath here. So this whole row of staples is holding on the welt, this fabric, this foam, this fabric, and anything that might be under that. So I'm just going to cut above that, and hopefully we can take that off in one hit. So now this fabric can come up, and if we did it right, which we didn't yet, we should be able to pull it out. We're still connected about still connected to the bottom. Cushion fabric is gone. This is let's see if I can do it. Where's my pliers? Almost all of them. One down. There won't even be no staples left for you to pull. I'm done with it. Look at that. Now that's satisfying. Every single one. Can you see? That's 3 rows of staples. There's still 1 row left. We'll get to that later. So then the foam can come off, should come off pretty easily because that's just to the top. Stapled to the front. And you can see where the frame actually cut through. The sharp edge of the foam cut through here. This is why we use edge roll, people. Edge roll, which is like a rounded rope, protects your foam from the sharp edge of that wall, from doing damage to your foam or from doing damage to your fabric. Now we're down to the barrier. In this chair's case, they used sharp wood as an edge roll. This is on top of the barrier fabric. So this has to be removed to get this out all the way. But for today, we're just going to cut it out. And then we're going to replace this with rope edge roll because it's softer and rounder, and it's going to protect us from getting holes in our foam and flopping around later on the room. So this is all the stuff that's tucked in through the back and staples. There's still a couple of staples in some spots, so that has to go through and get removed. This piece of material is overlapping your arms. So this is the one that comes off next. And that's gonna get cut. That's stapled up here around these decorative edges. I'm going to remove the staples on that later.
Yeah. Okay, that's the third one.
It's our favorite part of the day.
Welcome back. Mom, is it a good place for all this? No, you could just leave it there. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah.
Good job.
Right.
Good job. With the that's pretty much trying to remove everything up this. More treasures. But this is attached. Okay. Thanks. Okay, doesn't this make you feel like you did so much work? Don't worry, all the work is still there. Here we go. Even back far out of this. So, I'm using scissors so I don't cut myself with a razor blade where I can't see what I'm doing. Deep inside the crack of that chair. Back is off. With the barrier fabric here. It's gonna come off. This foam will come off. And because we're putting barrier fabric and new foam and everything on here, we won't be reapplying this foam like this because I don't think we're going to do the same application that they did, even if we do use channels. Okay, so the last piece is left, besides the staples from all the other pieces that we got, is these side arm panels here. These are stapled around this wood edge, and they come through the pull-through spot in the frame here, and they staple to the inside here. So that's where it's got to be removed from. I'm just going to cut it. I'm going to go back and remove the staple. Okay. So I'll still have to go back in and remove all the fabric and stuff that is stapled to the inside edges. But I've made it a lot easier to be able to grab these rows of staples and pull them out. I have this arm left. Always move the chair to where it's easiest so you don't end up hurting yourself, especially if you're using a sharp knife. Right. Once these arm panels are gone, you'll see there's another layer of chipboard right here. That we're going to replace because it's caved in, so that's going to come off too. So the last thing we have left to do on this chair is to just finish removing the staples, which you guys don't want to sit here and watch me wrestle with. So over here on this one, we can just stay on this one here. So we're going to come back through here. We're going to twist all these off because that was a good way to remove staples. Clean it all off, and then we're just going to have the wood frame and the sinuous springs. That's it. We're going to strip off the chipboard. We're going to strip off the rest of the foam. I'm going to take off this edge roll because we're going to replace that. And you should be left with just a wood frame and springs if you're starting it to the same point that I am, which is rebuilding this from scratch. So next Tuesday, we're going to come back and we're going to put barrier fabric on everything. Jute webbing probably on the back to give it a little bit more infrastructure back there. It had literally had paper on it before that was like sagging through, so we're going to make it last a lot longer. Then we're going to put barrier fabric there, and then we're going to put 2-inch foam on the back, 1-inch foam on the arms, 3-inch foam on the seat, and see if we get to the batting card. If we don't get to the batting card, the batting will be the following week. And then once we have it all to foam and batting, we're taking it to the Furniture Flip Bash on September 10th, and we're going to reupholster this with new fabric live. As a reminder, this is the fabric we're getting back. This is from Covington Fabrics, and I got this on fabricguru.com for like $14 a yard, and it comes in several colorways. It's a 25-inch pattern repeat. I believe we just measured it, so it's a real big pattern repeat. Keep that in mind for your measurements. You have to add the length of your pattern repeat to everywhere the pattern needs to repeat. And then the front fabric is this red velvet. Will be going on front. Now, I don't know if we're going to end up using the channel back or not because we might not have time during a live event, but that's the goal. So if you want to learn a little bit about upholstery and furniture restoration, join me live here on Tuesdays from noon until about 1 or 2, depending on how far we get. Today we got through staple removal. We also went over the tools that you're going to need, materials you're going to need, and how to take measurements for materials. That's it for today. You can catch us live replay later on. If you put a question in the comments, I'm going to try and answer that question for you. Other than that, reach out to me if you have any questions addressing what we just went through.